6 months ago, Alex picked a direction. At the end of our last story, he stepped into the forest. He didn't know where it would lead. He just knew standing still wasn't an option anymore. So he chose a path. Today, he's sitting at his desk. The landing page is finished. The product is ready. The button that says Launch has been sitting on his screen for 3 weeks. He hasn't been lazy. Yesterday, he watched 4 more tutorials. He redesigned the logo twice. He read another article about launching successfully. For a few minutes after each one, it felt like progress. His brain couldn't tell the difference. He feels busy. He feels like he's moving. He hasn't moved at all. And the strange thing is, he knows exactly what to do next. There's no mystery, no missing information. Just one click. So why can't he do it? History has an answer, but it begins long before Alex, long before computers, long before cities. Back when failure could cost you far more than your pride. Part of the answer is chemical. The brain rewards anticipation surprisingly well. Researching a goal, imagining success, talking about future plans. All of these produce a small taste of the satisfaction that usually belongs at the finish line. If planning feels good enough, action becomes easy to postpone. But the deeper answer is older than chemistry. It's a question of stakes. For most of human history, failure was never private. A failed hunt was watched by the whole tribe. A failed harvest could affect an entire family. A misjudged risk carried consequences larger than the person who took it. Some societies made this explicit. In ancient Athens, citizens could be ostracized, voted out of the city for years. No crime required. Just enough people deciding they no longer wanted you around. For most humans throughout history, exile was dangerously close to a death sentence. The nervous system never got the memo that the world changed. It still treats public failure as a threat to survival itself. And once the brain labels something a survival threat, it becomes remarkably creative at keeping you away from it. The safest move it has ever discovered is simple. Never try. Almost everything we admire was built through repeated failure. But the nervous system doesn't know that. It only knows what happened the last time someone stepped forward and fell. Before becoming one of history's most influential scientists, Charles Darwin delayed publishing his ideas for decades. He worried they were incomplete. He worried they would be attacked. He worried he might be wrong. The fear wasn't unusual. What's unusual is that he eventually published anyway. Progress rarely belongs to people who never doubt themselves. It belongs to people who move despite the doubt. 2 old traditions from opposite ends of the ancient world arrived at different answers to that same fear. In Rome, the Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst possible outcome before taking action. Not to become pessimistic, to discover that the worst case is usually survivable. Stare at the nightmare long enough, and it stops being a monster in the dark. It becomes a known shape. On the other side of the world, the Bhagavad Gita offered a different answer. Act fully, but release your grip on the result. The teaching is called Nishkama Karma, action without attachment to its fruit. In this view, the fear of failure isn't really about failing. It's about trying to secure an outcome that was never fully under your control. Different roads, same destination. Separate the act from the verdict. Here's what the Stoics and the Gita both understood that Alex's brain does not. The tribe is no longer watching. The people who might see this launch fail are strangers. Most of them will forget by tomorrow. None of them are the 150 people Alex's nervous system is convinced are judging him. But the alarm doesn't know that. It only knows one thing. Something is about to put your standing at risk. For 70,000 years, that was a reasonable thing to fear. A damaged reputation could mean fewer allies, less trust, less protection. In the worst cases, exile. The humans who took social rejection seriously survived more often than the humans who didn't. So the brain learned a simple rule: avoid visible failure. Protect your place in the tribe. The problem is that Alex doesn't live in a tribe anymore. He lives on the internet. And today, it is quietly keeping Alex's best work on a screen nobody can see. This isn't weakness. This isn't laziness. This is a very old brain doing exactly what it was built to do, in a world it was never built for.
There is a third antidote hidden throughout history: exposure. Ancient craftsmen learned it. Warriors learned it. Sailors learned it. Explorers learned it. The first mistake feels catastrophic. The 10th feels educational. The 100th barely registers. Competence grows where failure is allowed to happen repeatedly. Alex doesn't become fearless. He simply stops waiting for fear to disappear. First, he names the worst case. The launch fails. He starts over. The monster finally has a face. Second, he loosens his grip on the outcome. The launch might succeed. It might fail. The point was never certainty. The point was action. Third, he practices failing where it doesn't matter. A new skill, a difficult conversation, something small enough to survive. Failure stops feeling like an emergency once the brain experiences it often enough. Then he clicks the button. Nothing dramatic happens. Just a click. The screen confirms. Launched. Forrest from before never asked anyone to be fearless. It only ever asked them to keep walking. The only guaranteed way to never find a path through it was to never step into it at all. Alex didn't stop being afraid. He just stopped waiting to stop being afraid.